Thank you, Travis. You can hear me? Um, um, Last week, those of you who were here, you may remember I sort of plunged into this subject of marriage and the sort of the uh, overarching burden is based on an outline that was prepared before the pandemic, when I had the burden to get into this matter. And it was called A Holy Marriage for God's Purpose. So simple. And, but actually, I told you that at that time I concurrently prepare another outline called A Godly Family for the Church Life. So you have a pair here, right? A holy marriage for God's purpose and a godly family for the church life. Now, these two subjects, as you can tell, are inseparable. One is for the other, and the other is based on the one. And so I feel since last week, after I shared, I really did not have a plan to do that. But after the meeting, based on my own inner feeling before the Lord, and also a number of responses or reaction to that time, I became actually more burdened. And so, as a result, about these matters, and as a result, I checked with the brothers here, taking care or coordinating for the working saints. And eventually, I even mentioned it to some of the leading brothers in the church here. And it seems about my burden, and it seems all were positive about this and happy about this. So I take that as a kind of confirmation from the Lord. Excuse me. Now, as this last week, as I was considering the matter and praying about the burden, I then recalled and certainly I remembered that at that time when these two outlines were prepared, there was actually a series of lessons or series prepared on these two subjects, quite intertwined and not, like two lines, but really blended as one. And then I remember that. I totally forgotten about that. And looking into them, I just, of course, this all ministry based and so on. That, how should I put it, added even more burden in me. And so, as a result, brothers and sisters, I have the feeling that I may have to devote a longer period of time as the opportunity avails, as, like meetings like this in particular. Why, you may say? Well, brothers and sisters, for several reasons. Number one, that as we have seen last week, and then we will see again tonight, the marriage and family are two things that are ordained by God for the human race, not only for its continuation or through procreation, but it is ultimately it is for God, for God's own need in his creating man. So we all know God created man, this human vessel, for himself. After the angelic race failed and indeed rebelled, so God came in to recover this damaged and corrupted earth. And not only so, he created a new race, a new being. And of course, we know, according to the truth, that this eventually is the human race. It's eventually not just its own race, it is actually God's race. Because they are made in the image of God according to his likeness and so on and so forth. That they are to replenish the earth, multiply, and they are to have dominion. And we all know image and dominion, these two twofold intentions of God with man, that he could have an expression on the earth and in this universe, and he could defeat his enemy and reclaim this earth for his kingdom. And man is to be that vessel. I don't use the word instrument, but that vessel that he would use to accomplish that. So for man to exist, for man to continue on, for man to multiply, for man to defeat God's enemy, man, it cannot just be Adam alone, right? So this is why God said that it's not good for man to be alone. And I will make him a helpmeet. And it turned out that he actually took something out of the man to create his helpmeet, and that would be Eve. So all these have, spiritual significance. These are really types of Christ and the church and so forth. But it is starting from that point with the first man. If that man were to remain alone, I don't know. I mean, Adam lived 900 some years or whatever. It would still be 900 years, and that's it. So, but God wants a population of humans all across this earth as vessels for him to fill and for him to be expressed through. So this man needs to multiply. How would he do it? No, not by himself alone, according to God's creation and according to God's natural law in that creation. And so he created a woman because none of the animals, right, that was marched before Adam matched man. He needed a counterpart. You all know, I don't know whether you know this word counterpart, what it means. See, we throw a lot of words around, but really we sort of know it. We really don't really know it. Counterpart has a number of very important meanings. Number one, it means a duplicate. If I make a counterpart copy of something, that means it's an exact duplicate. It's like Solomon and Shulamite, right? So the first thing about a counterpart is that it is a duplication, a duplicate, a copy, an exact copy, a corresponding copy, let's say, of the original. That's Eve. And number two, counterpart means two things that would match and fit each other perfectly. Perfect fit. All right. That's the meaning of counterpart. This is not two things together or two look-alikes together. No, it's two things that is the same and two things that is perfectly fit, like coupling, the perfect fit. And needless to say, these two things would be remarkably maybe identical, even not even just similar, but identical. So we are to be same as Christ or as God in life and nature and function and expression. And then, last but not least, a counterpart means a complement, C-O-M-P-L-E-M-E-N-T, okay? A complement. That means something that completes. In other words, if it's just one thing, it's incomplete. The counterpart is to complete that one thing. Brother Lee talked about the two sides of a watermelon, right? One is just, if you are just a male, you just will always be just one half. You need the female, the other half, to make one watermelon. And so it complements. This is the meaning of counterpart. So, just by this very, very simple definition, that there's so much to not only the reality of Christ and the church, but even to us, the type, the picture, the photograph of that. So when you look at marriage in that way, my goodness, even just with that little definition, you may begin to have a change in your concept. Do you follow me? Today, marriage is just this human tradition, and two people fall in love, whatever. They eventually chose to live together and have a life together and have a family together. Not wrong. Nothing is wrong about that, but it is not up to that highest kind of a concept. Look, even in our human marriage, we should have this kind of a concept. And how much more that we are Christians, we are the children of God. We need to have this very high view. Yes, there's love. Yes, there's all romance. Yes, there's all that. I'm not questioning that. But I'm saying I'm just so burdened, even starting from the very, very beginning, to uplift our view concerning this. I don't like the word institution. I would say this ordination of God for man to exist, to multiply, and to continue on for his purpose. So now, tonight, I have been considering a lot, obviously, about what to talk about. I mean, the logical thing is I would just begin and get into this matter of marriage, but as I was laboring on this burden, I feel not to. I feel tonight I'm going to touch the family. the family, because they're interrelated. You almost cannot, or may I say, should not, look at marriage just as a, that snapshot, of two, because that two got together for a reason. I mean, I'm talking about under normal, you know, common circumstances. There's always exception. But according to God's intention and God's ordination, these two, Adam and Eve, that coming together is to multiply, is to replenish the earth, is to subdue the earth as a result. And so then you, of course, you survey the many marriages, particularly the positive ones, in the Word, right? And especially in the Old Testament, and also in the New, you begin to have this. You should have a this kind of a view that marriage is a continuation of a line, right? Of a lineage, right? Of generation to generation, of descendants, of offsprings, a line. And that line is super important. That line of life, that line that God had started in with Adam and Eve, is to culminate in something, all right? It is to culminate, humanly speaking, in the coming of Christ, of the incarnation of God, okay, of Jesus coming to this earth. And then beyond that, what this Christ would do according to God's economy, God's plan. And then, which, put it very, very simply, is through his processes and this and that, eventually what? To save man, redeem man, and build men up to be what? To be his counterpart, to be his wife, all right? So this is the divine romance. This is God and man being married, being joined in eternity. And so all the human marriages eventually, according to God, is for that marriage. And for that to happen, there has to be this line, this right, proper line that continues to bring forth Christ, and through Christ to build up the church, his body, his bride and wife. So I know we know all these things, but I want to put all these things again quickly into perspective. So tonight I'd like to just say a few things, as I did last week, not delving into the details, because there's too many details. I can tell you today, these two things, marriage and family, is the most important thing, right? And no wonder these two things, these two units, if you will, were the most under attack. Now, this is not only in today's age, this has been the case ever since Adam. To destroy marriage, to even destroy men before they can get married. And then if they get married, they're destroyed, or abusing the God-ordained marriage to make it something perverse. Am I right? To make it something, to corrupt it, to debase it. And you know what I'm talking about. And I mean, by Genesis chapter 6, the human race had fallen to the bottom, all right? And this matter of marriage was just, destroyed. You know, in the Lord say in Matthew 24, in the days of Noah, right? Referring to the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Those are the days of Noah. That means we're sort of in those days. But in the days of Noah, that is Genesis 6, when man fell to such a point they become flesh, God just ceased to strive with man. The Spirit ceased to strive with man, and God had only one thing he could do, and that is totally wipe man out and start it all over again. Of course, what he did eventually was just save one family, and that is Noah's family. Okay, in Matthew 24, it talks about what? And people in those days are eating and drinking, marrying and given to marriage. How about that? I always don't know what that means. I still don't fully understand what that means. But that age, that very, very, that time when the whole earth is filled with violence and filled with lawlessness, which is another word for a long word for sin, that everything is wicked and evil, and people were marrying and given to marriage. So it must mean that at that time, this kind of marrying and given to marriage is not good, right? Otherwise, the Lord would not have spoken in that way. It has become something just twisted, something corrupted, something evil and bad. And marrying given to marriage, whether this means almost like not only divorces left and right, but people don't even, they just live together, they whatever. Marriage have lost its sanctity. It has lost its proper order. It has lost the nature that God has intended it to have, and lost its purpose for this something that God has ordained, so holy, so proper, for His own purpose, etc. It has become just totally usurped by Satan and sabotaged by the devil, and turned it into part of the evil world and age and system in the human race. That age, by the way, is characterized by fornication, and particularly the sons of God, these not sons of, these fallen angels that took on the human bodies to marry the human female to produce these strange beings. I tell you, I study this. I tell you, that is the time. This kind of breaking the law of God's creation, breaking the natural law for different races to join together, okay? That is not according to God. And that is one of the biggest signs of an evil, abominable age. That's the age we're in, brothers and sisters. And so today, it's hard to really find, to know for most people, what is marriage? What is a proper marriage? What is a normal marriage? What is a God-ordained marriage? Why are we getting married? Yeah, it's love. It's meets our human need. It's all this, but it's entirely nothing about God, nothing for the Lord, nothing at all. And not to mention that the whole marriage institution has been just absolutely under attack. You know, people just don't even get married, or well, we'll just sort of kick the tires or try it out. If it doesn't, yeah, just go out different ways and try it again. And do you see, all this kind of thing is just normal, pervasive in the thinking. I'm afraid not just with worldly people, but very much with Christians, and sorry to say, even in the recovery, this concept could be in many young people, really. Um, uh, uh, and that all starts with a lowered concept of what marriage is. Same thing with family. Same thing with family. It is just totally under attack. What is so-called nuclear family. Um, and look at today, not only the divorce rate, which is getting higher and higher, but broken families. You know, they. I was told they did a survey with some of the colleges, and they want these freshmen to college, to write down what are the things that is destroying, that have affected them, and in a negative way. You know what is the first thing? It's not drugs. It's not. You know what I mean? It's not. The first thing is broken homes. The first thing is broken homes, because single parent, you know what I mean, divorced, dysfunctional families, and you see all of this. That's why I say marriage is absolutely tied to family. And so, and you look across the board today, all the many ills of society actually has its source from this kind of a thing. Broken families. Um, you know, so I like to, when we talk about marriage, to concurrently talk about family. All right. Now, you say how long you're going to take to talk about this. I have no idea. I just can tell you I have a very strong burden. So the other thing is this, that we in the recovery, we have the highest truth. We have the richest truths and all of that. No doubt. And I'm one of the frequent speakers of these truths, in the fees and the trainings and the conferences. So I know a few things about that. Okay, these truths are indeed high, indeed deep, and indeed something of God. No doubt about that. But my concern is with us in the recovery, that we have the greatest. We possess these things, these riches. But we may be preaching, uh, talking the talk, but not walking the talk. Do you follow me? In other words, it's just truths and eventually a lot of wonderful knowledge. But our living, and when I say living, I mean, number one, our personal living as an individual. Number two, our marriage. And then number three, our family. All right. And then our community. Um, so often it does not match these truths. Now, not that we are all arrived, we all so overcoming, we're so perfect. No, 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 no. We're all pieces of work. We're all a project in God's hands. We're in the process, no doubt about that. But I'm saying that uh, there could be such a disparity. There would be such a um, uh, gap, between what we know and promote and speak, even in the meetings, than compared to how our lives are. No longer, it's been a long time in the recovery, can we say, in the churches we just don't have divorces. There may be very few and very special circumstance in the early days. We cannot say that. Divorces left and right. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to compare to this group or that group. I'm just saying that even just comparing it to ourselves. Um, and 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 this is wrong. This is wrong. So the burden that I have is not that we have perfect marriages, perfect families, we're all overcomers in that way. But I am talking about a uplifting of the vision and the concept of these most important human relationships for our existence and for our continuation, and much more for God's purpose and for the church. I mean, I don't know how to put it, brothers and sisters. The burden within me is desperate. I mean, I like to just speak about high truths, but I realize, no, many of the saints need this. We need help in these matters, to study these matters, to know these matters, and not just so that we have more knowledge, but so that we would know how to face this, how to regard this, you know. Uh, we should revere, if I can use that word. Revere means what? To respect and honor. Am I right? We should revere marriage, brothers and sisters. It's not it's not a movie, okay? It's not a romance novel. It's not, brothers, we need a brainwash. We need a change of mind. We have become too worldly, even in our thinking. We have been dumbed down by the worldly concept and ways. And I'm just burdened not to speak my thing. I'm burdened just to bring forth the word of God in a practical way. I do believe, because it has happened before over the ages, of normal, functional, proper, pure, godly marriages and families. All right. And so, okay, I will give you one example right now. I'm just freestyle talking here. And that is, you all know the name Andrew Murray, a very spiritual man, is last in the line of the inner life line, and a Scotsman that had, because his father moved to South Africa, and he was grow up there and minister there. And the Spirit of Christ, the book that Brother Lee just depend on so much to open to see the matter of the Spirit being the process of the triune God, etc., etc. So, of course, he's a very spiritual man, very godly. But if you study him, you realize one big thing with him is not just that. Of course, he did a lot there, but is in his burden for his family. He came through a line from the great-great-grandfather in Scotland all the way. They have been godly people and people, some, ministers and so on. And he kind of inherited that. And and it is said that, he had a lot of books in how to raise up children, not just how to raise up children, how to raise up children that loves God and serves God. That is a book on that, and and he has many children himself, and the way he and his wife were, they raised up these children in a very godly manner. You can just go find and read them. It is said that he died in 1917, and in 1922, all the descendants of his, not of his, but of his father, the first one that migrated to South Africa, had a reunion at the centennial, 100 years. And there, the total number of the descendants were about 500, but about half of that showed up there for that reunion. And it is said that of all the descendants, 500, whatever, there's at least 50 that are ministers, another 50 that are missionaries, and many who are becoming doctors and, professionals with the view to serve the Lord, in that kind of profession. And he has this to say: a godly parentage, it's an old word, is a priceless boon, B-O-O-N. Its blessing rests, I'm reading, not only upon the children of the first generation, but has often been traced in many successive generations. You see the point here? It's not about just your family, a snapshot, or my family, a snapshot. It is about the possibility of continuing from generation to generation something godly, something of the Lord, okay? That kind of a blessing. So I wish I have the words to help us all, to uplift us, brothers and sisters, to see our family in this kind of a way, to see our marriage, to see our family in this kind of a way. And we know that 50%, let's say, using Brother Watchman Nee's words, 50% of the church's increase come from within what we call church children or church kids. But I think we would all agree, and if we look at our church life and look at our statistics, it is quite dismal. I'm talking about in the recovery. I cannot speak for other places, but I surely can speak about Southern California. That from junior high, 7th grade to end of college, that total 10 years or so, our attrition rate is 50%. We lose 1 out of every 2 of our own. And so, this is just one generation. How about the next generation and the next generation? Our record is not something to write home about. Sorry to put it in those terms. But is it not possible? Again, dear brothers and sisters, I'm not here giving a class on how to have perfect marriage and family, because there's none that is perfect except God. But I'm burdened that there would be a general uplift in the whole recovery, in these two essential matters of marriage and family, that even if we move that needle a little bit, that would be like, that will have fantastic consequences, huge consequences of hundreds of thousands, not only of one generation, but for generation down the line. And so in the Old Testament, that line, that lineage that leads to Christ became so important. That's why the story of Rahab, the story of Rahab and Salmon, and then Ruth and let's just skip my mind. Yeah, um, and then on down, like becoming, King David's, ancestors, and then all the way down to Christ, and then and so on. So, and then you go to Deuteronomy. Just go to Deuteronomy and just kind of read it again. Go to chapter 6. I just open it right before I turn on the Zoom here. Deuteronomy is re-speaking, right, of the law, of the ordinances and statutes and so forth. And here's Moses before he died. He was about to die. He rehearsed these things with the children of Israel. Keep the law. Do it. Keep the commandments. All of that. Fear Jehovah. And of course, hear, O Israel. Jehovah is our God. Jehovah is one. And you shall love Jehovah your God, this first commandment, with all your heart, your soul, your might, and so forth. And these words I command you today shall be upon your heart. Then he said this, and you shall repeat them to your children and speak about them when you sit in your house and when you journey on the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. Bind them on your hand as a sign, be a frontlets between your eyes, write them on the doorpost and house and your gates, and so on and so forth. I want to bring your attention, obviously, to this. Repeat them to your children. That means we need to teach our next generation diligently these things. Look in the New Testament. Look at Timothy. Timothy is a descendant, at least, of a third generation Christian. All right, Lois, and then who? What is the mother's name?
Eunice.
Sorry. And then Timothy, right? And then, do you see that quote, quote, transfer of faith from generation to generation? And then this in 2 Timothy 1, and then in 2 Timothy 3, it talks about, Paul talking to Timothy, that as from a babe you have known the scriptures, which is make you wise unto salvation. Well, what's that? That means it started with the grandma, then with the mother, and then to him. So you got a transfer of what? Of the Old Testament. Basically, that's the Old Testament, the Word of God. So you got faith, you got the Word, and these things, you know how related they are, right? Faith is transferred through the Word. Faith comes from hearing, and hearing from the Word of God. So you better believe that the grandma and the mother was doing their thing to what? To pass on the scriptures to this young man from a babe, And through that faith of God, the divine faith, is infused into Timothy. This is not an accident. This is not, God's special doing. No, this is fulfilling a law, all right? A law of what? Of passing these things on. Uh, there's nothing more better, greater, more important that we pass on to our children and their children's children and onwards than God. Am I right? Then the Lord Jesus, then the Word, then the gospel, and even more than that, even the teachings of the Lord and the apostles in the Bible, etc. There's nothing more important than that. To we cannot ensure, but to do our duty, to do our part in what? In raising up godly children for the Lord, for the church life. And this does not happen by wishful thinking. It doesn't happen just by, no. You have to have this vision. You have to pay the price. You have to nurture and raise your children in this particular way for that to be a result. You know, Andrew Murray's family is not accidental. It is a lot of work, year in, year out, year in, year out, that produce such a godly line. We in the Lord's recovery should be like that. And don't think this is, too high, too deep. No. This is normal. This is healthy. This is possible. This is possible. I cannot say my burden is totally reverse the trend, and that's too much. But if we can help one another, we can find grace. Noah found grace in the eyes of Jehovah. If we cooperate with God to find grace with the Lord, here and there, in Irvine, in this church, and whatever, and it is a lifelong commitment to do that. Marriage is a life, death and life, through death matter. Family is through death matter. And we have our whole life to what? To work on this, to labor on this, to tend to this garden, all right? To bring in a harvest. But we need this kind of a view. I said a lot here. I don't want to be here just reading outlines, but you know, you don't need me to remind you how the Bible consider the family. Now I'm not talking about marriage. I'm talking about family, a unit of salvation, right? In the Bible, case after case after case. Old Testament, in the Passover, right? It's a family unit eating a lamb, right? And you got and then you have just in the Old Testament, case after case, Noah's, I mean, Rahab's, the whole household got saved, not just Rahab. Rahab asked that the whole house would be spared, and the whole house was saved, and and so on. And of course, in the New Testament, there's just so many cases of a family, of a household salvation. So these households not only eventually saved. I remember 15 years ago, I give a conference here in Anaheim for the Spanish-speaking saints. I have 4 messages for them. I forgot what the title is, something like a godly family or something. And I have 4 S's to define what is a godly proper family. Number one, 4S, number one, a saved family. The whole house is saved. Number two, a sanctified family, a family that is separate from the world, that is not for the world and in the world. And number three, a what? A spiritual family. Spiritual not in that sense. Spiritual, that means it's a family that is of the Spirit, a family that has the Spirit, you know, um, spiritual in that kind of a way. It has Christ. It has the spiritual elements of God, and that that fills that family. Um, then number four, a serving family, a family that what is it? There was Joshua. As for me and my house, we will what? Serve Jehovah. So a saved, sanctified, spiritual, and serving family is what I call a orderly, good, sweet family or household for for God. The New Testament is full of this. Household of Caesar, the household of Cornelius, the household of Lydia. Remember Lydia, the jailer? Remember the jailer? The whole house, you and your house, will be saved. The house of Crispus and Aquila and Prisca. Of course, they don't have children. I don't know, but their house, Philemon, and so on. Talk about the groups, talk about homes, talk about 80% of the church life. If we don't have this kind of a marriage and family, how can we have this kind of prevailing group church life, right? And then, there's a lot to this. And then, of course, I don't have the time now. This whole matter related to Noah is really, really worthwhile our study. I just recommend that you go back to the life study of Genesis to study. Noah didn't pop out of a rock, okay? Noah was a descendant of godly families, starting with Adam, right? And then Abel, am I right? And then Enosh, am I right? And then Enoch, am I right? You do know that actually when they overlap, a lot of these, because in those days they live hundreds of years, they overlap. And so the point is this: the point is Noah didn't just come out of nowhere. Noah was born into a godly family. He inherited all these spiritual blessings, starting with Adam, and then who knew God's way of salvation. That's the gospel. Then he had what? He had Abel, who learned how to worship and how to offer to God. And then Enosh, the one who called, the first guy who called on the name of God. And then you have Enoch, the one who walks with God. And so he didn't just pop out of nowhere. He inherited all these things from his forefathers, learning from one to the other. And so by the time, when it comes to him, he has learned so much of these things from God, and he continued that. And that's how he preached righteousness. Who told him that? Well, his forefathers, his ancestors taught them all these things. How did he find grace? To find grace, meaning you like coming to the throne of grace, you find grace and mercy. You know who to come to to meet your need for your supply. And he knew how to do this. Noah walked with God. How did he know that? He learned that from Enoch. From Enoch. So, brothers and sisters, I feel these things are we need to come back to these things as it affects our lives today. So let me end by just reading Watchman Nee. I like to just read these quotes, And Brother Lee testify he learned this of Brother Nee, and that's why he spoke quite much about the family and all that. Brother Nee said, I would like to say emphatically that the family life of our next generation has much to do with the church life of our next generation. The church life of the next generation will be strong only if you take care of this matter well. If our next generation has terrible families, the church will suffer many drawbacks. In the coming days, may God bestow his grace to the church so that many young families will be raised up, in which both the husband and the wife serve the Lord, this is marriage, and walk in his way together in one accord. How beautiful such a picture will be. A good church life is maintained through good families. The husbands have to be good and the wives have to be good, then the church life will be free of problems. So you see, marriage and family are just intertwined and inseparable. Today, these two units, right, the marital unit and the familial unit, if they are strong, if they are stable, if they are healthy, if they are normal, and even not just in the worldly sense, but they are actually godly, they are sanctified, they are spiritual, they serve the Lord, and all of this, I tell you, brothers and sisters, our church life will be strong and prevailing, whatever we do, because the foundation, the basic units themselves are solid. All right. So I think I think this is good enough. It's 9 o'clock already. I feel, dear saints, this is a warfare. I'm touching this. I will tell you, this is a warfare. This is the strategic point of the enemy's attack. And this is something that we have to protect and preserve. We need to fight for ourselves. We need to fight for our children, and we need to fight for our children's children. And all the attacks that are coming, that is directed at these ordinations, at these relationships, at these human units, is real. And I just feel we need prayer, brothers and sisters, for your own family, for your marriage, for your children, and beyond. And those of you who have not married yet, I'll tell you, I hope, I think what I'm talking about is absolutely for those who are not married. Absolutely. Because it will give you a different view. It will give you a different perspective of what is proper and what is according to God or what is worldly, right? And now, probably between now and the summer training, we don't have another Thursday like this so it'll be after this. But I really feel we need more time to get into some of the more details and practical things and so on. Okay. I hope this is helpful to some degree. I really, really hope so.